The Articulate Coven is the original, unofficial podcast and fan community for Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire and Anne Rice's Immortal universe from AMC and AMC Plus. Welcome to The Articulate Coven. We are your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are The Articulate Coven. The Articulate Coven is the unofficial fan podcast and community for Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire, Mayfair Witches, the Immortal universe at AMC and AMC Plus, and of course, the original books themselves. We've talked about some of all of it. We've talked about the movies. And tonight we're talking about Interview with the Vampire Season 2, Episode 4, I Want You More Than Anything.
My goodness.
I mean, this was a big episode, I feel like.
Yeah.
My overarching theory is this. I think that this season's arc, the book itself, the climax of the book, as we all know, happens in Paris. And I think that that is going to happen in Episode 7. I think Episode 8 is going to be more like Season 3, Episode 1 than Season 2, Episode 8. That's my little pre-speculation based on the trajectory of this episode and what we've seen about next week.
Yeah, timing-wise, it seems like the penultimate episode will be the climax, and then the final episode will be kind of the aftermath, sort of, and setting up whatever's next. I totally think that that's right on track for what we're going to see. And it goes along with the AMC's long history of having really, really excellent penultimate episodes for their series.
It's a true story. You said the same thing last year, Ashley, and you weren't wrong there either. Okay, right off the top here, I want to say this because it's so cool. Rebecca Reesness sighting. So one of our fellow Louisiana Tech Theater alums, Rebecca Reesness, lives in Prague. We talked about this back during the filming of Season 2 that she had been cast, and I wasn't exactly sure where she was going to come in. I saw on her Facebook page the other day, I saw a picture of her in costume, and she was talking about she'd become a meme. Someone had made a meme using her and another cast member.
Shut up. That's awesome.
Right up at front. Okay, so in the opening of the episode, you see Claudia on stage, and it flashes several times to the same group of groupies, vampire-loving groupies in the front.
Yes.
There is a woman with a sort of bouffant hairdo and the white face, front and center. You go to her 3 different times. It's Rebecca. It's absolutely her.
That is so fantastic.
She's the one with the cigarette holder in the front.
Fabulous. Congratulations, Rebecca. You are awesome.
Right? I assumed that she was going to be a background member of the Coven. And I mean, maybe that character ends up again in another episode. But right now, there we go. We get our glimpse.
You're like 1 degree away from Sam.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like they were. Oh my goodness! I've reached out to her and asked if she's interested and if she's allowed, if the NDA allows, whenever it does, we'd love to have her on and talk about the experience of being on set and who she did interact with, if any, from the main cast.
Yeah.
There are just so many good lines in this episode. Lot of catty comments back and forth from all the different characters.
Oh yeah, things are definitely escalating in this, very much so.
One of my favorites, maybe in the whole series. I hate this song like I hate my mortal father.
Yes, and then the old guy at the sewing machine's like, yes, this is what I hear when I remember my mother beating me.
With a crucifix.
With a crucifix, of all things. Oh, what a torture.
First episode of the season, you and I called out the theatricality of having Delaney Hales, Claudia will now be played by Delaney Hales before the show actually starts. Here's another great reference to the theater of it all. Santiago gets his call from the stage management and he goes, fuck off 3 minutes.
Yes. You're supposed to say thank you 3.
Yes, exactly. Thank you 3 minutes. Thank you, whatever
he's
the
not
response
being polite.
is. Yeah, not being polite at all, which is really a shame since he was getting head under the table at the same time.
Which is so hilarious. Like, that's just like you're getting that done and you're still in a bad mood. Like, that is so rude. So rude, Santiago.
So Santiago.
But I have to say, I fucking love him. This is the best portrayal of this character I've seen, number 1. Number 2, I didn't think I would find this character this interesting or this fascinating or this, not be able to take my eyes off of him when he's on the screen doing shit, you know?
Strongly agree.
He is so fantastic. He's one of the best parts of this season, I truly, truly think.
Okay, so 500 performances, they reference specifically. Santiago had said in the last episode that they were going to make Claudia their baby bird for 50 years. She lasted 2 before the unrest boils to a head here. Interesting to me that she lasted 2, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, well, and it wasn't going well. I mean, I wonder how long she was able to, like, keep the facade up of, or was actually kind of enjoying it, you know, to a point. I think that there's some fun in that performance, that especially that first one we watched, you know, and she was really like committed to it. And I think I saw an interview with her where she was like, she really loves dancing and she loves theater, and so this was getting to play, even though doing this was for Claudia the worst thing, for Delaney doing this stuff was really fun.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, and I was just kind of trying to scan his entry in the alphabetary to see. There's nothing in the books that implies that Santiago's maker was destroyed by Armand, right?
No, not that I can recall at all.
Okay. And audience, if you're listening and you're going, of course, Ashley and Joel, here's the thing that Ann said one time and blah, blah, blah. Please let us know. We don't mind being corrected.
We always welcome that.
Honestly, half of this podcast is so that we know better what we can't look up and figure out ourselves.
Yeah. If you can help me hyperfixate more accurately, then I say thank you very much.
But I genuinely, okay, so I think that is a change from the books, or at least an addition that's not there, or not heavily implied in any way. And that's a great example of how this adaptation has improved certain things from the story. It's not just about changing to the medium, but there are chances to take a second draft or a second swing at a character. And Santiago, which you and I both agree in past adaptations, has been a perfectly delightful bastard to hate.
Oh, yeah.
There was no reason for his anger and disdain of Louis from go. Like, from moment one, it's clear that Louis just chokes in his throat, you know?
Right.
Just can't stand to be around him.
Well, and it feels so much in this adaptation, too, that has so much to do with how Armand is reacting to Louis and what Armand is allowing Louis to get away with that the rest of them aren't allowed to. Like, I think that, like, it really amps up his disdain for, like, his disdain for Armand is completely and totally tied to the reason why he, at the core, disdains Louis.
Yes, but I think that wouldn't even chafe as much as it does for him if the opposite, you know, Armand as a rule follower hadn't burnt him so early in his maker being destroyed.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
We don't know a lot about his maker at this point, but we do know he was powerful as hell because Santiago is loaded, right? Like,
right.
He is a jacked up vampire, even though he's very recently made. I say very recently, the most recent of anyone in the Coven, anyway.
Right, and that includes, we discussed, that includes even Claudia. Claudia is an older vampire than Santiago.
Oh, yes. If you go actually to her actual birth date, she is older than Santiago. You're right. I forgot about that. Okay. Anyway, just an interesting example there. And like we've been praising Ben Daniels and his performance, but it's not just his performance. They've given him more to do here than Santiago's have had in the past.
It raises the stakes tremendously as well. You know, he's got this grudge that's just seething beneath the surface, and it's like he's been able to keep it under wraps for a long time, but you can see, like, this has been simmering in the background with the Coven. You know, this growing distrust of Armand, the way that he's allowed Louis to live freely the way he wants to live. He's allowed to interact with human beings however he chooses, and they're not allowed to do any of that. And so you can just see everything jittering apart in this episode so brilliantly, and it's done so well.
Can we talk about for a second the fact that even with immortality at their hands, these vampires can't get their minds around being, you know, feeling inferior in relationships? Like, polyamory should not be a problem when we all have eternity to spend together. But,
right.
But here the women are tearing themselves apart because of Santiago. Another good line, by the way. Put your tits back in your bloomers, slut.
Oh, that was so funny. That was so funny.
Okay. Dreamstat has been great throughout season 2. I was a little skeptical of it, other than great, we're going to get Sam every episode probably. It's been used in so many different ways. Even in this episode, it's used in like 5 or 6 different, tactics that it's pulling the audience in this way or that. And it's a combination of Sam and the writing itself, but man, just fantastic in this episode, especially from top to bottom. But I love in particular, and at first it's so well framed. You see Armand and Louis on the bed, and someone walks between them and the camera, but you're like, who else is in the apartment with them? And then finally you realize it's Lestat sitting down beside them, lighting his cigarette with the candle that Louis is toying with. All of that was just excellent. A couple of good lines there that I think are very telling. I saw a lot of speculation in our Facebook group about these being like, portends to what's to come in this season finale or something. I don't think it's going to be that literal, but I do think these are examples of Louis and Armand's character and how that's going to be revealed to us in the rest of these episodes. Louis says about lighting the candle finally with his mind. He's beginning to get the fire gift to work, and he says, it only seems to work when I think of stuff that pisses me off, which that's Louis's entire character, honestly, in the novels. Like, Louis only is a plot mover when he is very, very angry, right? Like, he's
usually burning shit at that point.
Right?
Like,
that's
he
what I'm
really
saying.
does like to light things on fire.
It is
a little bit of a firebug.
Yeah, not a little bit, but like multiple times he's burned Lestat's house down, with and without Lestat in it,
It's so funny.
So he says that, and then Armand says, I try to find the vulnerability in the object. And like, goddamn, sir, as the man who we know has mind-fucked both of our other main characters in modern-day Dubai, like, what are you just you saying the quiet part out loud, Armand?
Always. He's always accepting his intrusive thoughts.
Man, I can't remember the character's name, but so Marvel Comics has the Inhumans, which is invented a long time ago, spun off of the Fantastic Four, but in the modern comics, they've often tried to use the Inhumans to replace the X-Men because, Fox had control of the X-Men movies for a long time, and so the paradigm was that we don't make new X-Men characters because Fox has the rights to those, so we make Inhuman characters instead. Anyway, one of the main Inhumans, one of the older ones, and I wish I could remember his name, but his power, like his superpower, is that he can find the point that is vulnerable. And so, like, he can strike a wall with his hand and, tear a whole building down. Or he can see a situation from the outside and know what to say and who to, push in the right direction to blow it all up and make it collapse in on of itself. And I'm just like, boy, that's Armand's superpower, isn't it? Like, and it really is.
Armand's like your basic mean girl out in the world. That's like, I mean, I have this skill too. Like, you can, in a second, figure out exactly what you could say to someone to either pump them up and make them feel amazing, or to absolutely make them feel so small and so meaningless. Like, it is a real mean girl skill to have.
An interesting thing that I realized as we're getting the little flashbacks a couple of times in the episode of Daniel in the 70s, we don't see Daniel, we see Armand and things he's saying to him. We've seen 2 or 3 things now that Armand was saying directly to Daniel, clearly trying to find the part where the object is vulnerable, Mm-hmm. There's a thing that Louis says in season 1, and I don't think I'm quoting it perfectly, but it's basically, are we the sum of our worst moments?
Right.
I think at the moment when he said it, he was referencing Lestat. But I think this whole series is about, for Louis, an exploration. Is he the worst things that he's done and the worst decisions that he's made and the times when he's let, the monster out, so to speak? But that's effectively what Armand is doing in this sort of, I don't know, interrogation or whatever we're watching pieces of. That's what he's doing to Daniel. He's pointing out his worst moments. And that's not all Daniel is.
No, it's very threatening. All of that feels very dangerous and very threatening to me. So and I don't know if it's because we're seeing it through the veil of Daniel remembering and not knowing what the fuck he's remembering. And that's why it seems so scary, because he's genuinely frightened as these memories are coming back. I don't know how much of it is Armand stirring around in his head if Daniel gets a little is pushing a little too hard in one direction that he doesn't like, then it's definitely the feeling that, oh, that's when I'm going to get in here and fucking shake you up a little bit. But it also seems like he wouldn't want Daniel to be remembering that. Like, they want to keep their control over him, and it's like these little things are breaking through.
That's the impression I got, is that, like, Armand's putting pressure in those moments in one direction, and it's like shifted the tectonic plate of Daniel's memories to free loose another thing. Because Daniel's also talking about headaches, right? Migraines, right, in those moments. Like, it's right, clear that it's affecting him physically. So I think he or Louis or both are pushing in one direction, and what it's doing is kind of accidentally bubbling these other things up.
Yeah, it's wild. It's done really well. I love the way that they're handling these little flashbacks, and of course, I mean, Daniel's so fantastic, is doing such a great job that it's really just hard to take your eyes away from it, because you don't want to miss a moment of what is being revealed.
Santiago finding Claudia in the wet room. I love that scene. The whole thing is, first of all, it's very menacing, right? Because we know, or we think we know, what's to come. But it's also, if you just play it on its surface level, I think Santiago, first of all, he knows already, because she's voiced it out loud, that she's displeased with the current situation.
Right.
And here he is. We know he's on the prowl for allies against Armand to make his move or whatever he's going to do. So even if you just take it at surface level, it makes sense, and it's a good scene, and they're both fun to watch, But there are a couple of things specifically that I wanted to call out. The whole, him getting the diary and reading it, on my first watch, I didn't quite get it. I thought, well, is he joking? What he makes it clear there, he can move at a speed that she can't even see.
Right. I read that in front of you.
He read the whole diary.
Yeah.
And it didn't look like he opened it,
I would love that special skill, by the way. Please, if I become a vampire, I would like to be able to read books very fast.
Oh my God. Okay. So I bumped into an old friend this past week, and he was telling me, we were debating whether or not audiobooks count as reading. He's like, I use audiobooks all the time. It's the only way that I get to enjoy books anymore. But we got to call it something else. That's not reading. That's listening to a book. And we went back and forth about this some. But that was the point that I made to him. I was like, if I could just literally sit the book on my head and by osmosis absorb its contents, I'd do that instead of audiobooks, because then I could do 15 a day or whatever,
Right. I mean, how many books can I touch? I could touch a lot of books. I'm a lover of books. My house is full of them. I would love that. I also think audiobooks definitely count as reading, because things have to be accessible.
Well, that's what I said. I said I used to agree. Even I love audiobooks.
I was a little snotty about it too.
Right, but let's just call it a different word, et cetera, et cetera. But it's ableist. That opinion is ableist. And I try very hard when I'm pointed out that I'm being ableist or ageist or sexist or anything else. Like, hey man, listen to the fucking, take the note as we talk about theater. Take the note.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, ableist. I appreciate that.
Thank you, ableism.
All right, let's move on here. Let's see. Okay, Madeline and Claudia. Let's talk about Madeline and Claudia a little bit. I like their first scene almost as much as the second scene, which we definitely are going to get to and talk about in a minute. But here, I want to call it out. I got the feeling as we're watching the episode, but then in the insiders, the episode Insider, it's specifically called out by, let's shout out to Mark Johnson, by the way. Claudia's never had a real lover, and that's what she finds in this woman who's been shunned by all of Paris. Mark Johnson's very excited for this sapphic romance. What do we think about this? What do you think about Madeline? It's obviously not that way in the books. Claudia is, 5 years old in the novel, basically, when she's turned. And even though she's a 50-year-old woman or whatever in that body, it's a mother-daughter relationship. It's not played at sapphic at all, even though there are other relationships that are played that way. What do you think about this, Ashley?
I mean, I think it's a great change. I think it's setting her up for a true companion in a way that I don't think she ever expected she might be able to have. I don't really feel the, electricity between the two of them quite yet. I think it's something that maybe Claudia is still exploring and getting used to the idea of. Yeah, I like it. I think it's an interesting addition, and I think it puts Claudia on more even footing with Louis.
Oh man, I was seeing sparks. It's Sam and Diane. They are so, or more. It's more than Sam and Diane. It's Moonlighting. It's Bruce Willis and Kathleen Turner from Moonlighting. It's a very adversarial tete-a-tete, or it's even, you go back further, it's My Girl Friday, right? It's snap and snap back and snap back and snap back. The one that I wrote down specifically was Claudia says to Madeline comments on her dress, or how terrible the doll dress is, and Claudia says, I agree. I just wouldn't say it because it's rude and obvious, and then turns and walks off. Shit, that's good, man.
Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, they definitely have chemistry. I hadn't quite seen it drift into the romance quite yet.
Well, I mean, the later scene, we'll get to the later scene where Madeline's clearly wanting someone to, what does she say? A young man to not fondle my tits, would it caress my tits? I don't know.
But something along those lines.
The way she said it, I was like, I think she's asking Claudia to do that. Anyway. Okay, let's talk about the dinner scene. The whole dinner scene is fantastic.
Oh my God, it's so good. Scene.
This jilted ex-girlfriend of Santiago's at one end, just literally sitting there catatonic. You've got the shit talking from him and his current paramour on the other end of the table. Louis just gushing on about Paris life and how the Second Enlightenment is happening there.
Yes.
And then Santiago's mimicry. Okay, so this is something we see it in the 94 film, mostly in mime. He's physically mimicking
physically, people. Yeah.
But to do it in voice here, I think is so, and the way that they go into it slowly. I really listened to this the second time, put my earbuds in, and really focused on the way that they were doing the sound mix. It starts as Ben Daniels' voice, and then it's Ben Daniels doing a Jacob impersonation, and then it's Ben Daniels mixed with Jacob's voice, and then it's just Jacob's voice.
Jacob's voice, yeah. It is really brilliant. The shift in the it was all so well done. It starts to get more and more intense as it goes along. It's building in intensity, and there is not an unearned moment in that scene, which I really, really appreciated. They really, really amped everything up to the point that would get everyone to this apex where Armand just freezes it and is like, y'all need to get to your corners, basically.
Okay, so we've talked about the fact that Santiago is a pretty powerful vamp here, but Louis ain't no slouch coming across the table and grabbing him by the tongue.
Grabbing him by the tongue. It's so threatening and frightening. I love it.
What'd you say, buffoon?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the time freeze power. This is something that came up, especially the first time that it happened in the series was at the card game in season 1. And we talked about it then, that it's not really a power that exists in the books, and what exactly are we seeing here? And we've read it a couple of different ways, but I specifically wanted to call it out here just because Nicholas Danielson asked about it in our Facebook group, and there's been good discussion back and forth there. I wanted to hear your take on it especially. So broad strokes, what I see is happening is it's almost like if you've ever seen the X-Men animated series, or if you ever read those comics back in the day, this is the best example I can think of. Professor X does this thing where he will often grab somebody's mind and go with them to they call it the astral plane in the comics. He'll just put you in another physical space, except you're not really in another physical space. It's all happening in your brain. And when that happens, he can have a whole, interaction with you, give you a lesson on whatever it is he's trying to explain, and then go back to real time, and it hasn't taken any time. Like Inception. Think of Inception. When they go down a further level, the time dilutes, so, 10 minutes in the lowest level is less than a second in the top level. That's the idea. And so that's what I felt like in the past when we've seen this. That's what was happening, is that basically it wasn't really that they froze time, it's that they were removing whoever they're trying to speak to in that moment and literally just having this telepathic tete-a-tete where everything is physicalized because it is all inside their minds. Some really good stuff on there from Erica Robert Paolo, as always, breaking down the difference between the mind gift for Anne in the books and the spell gift for Anne, and how they are intermingled but not exactly. Anyway, Nicholas pointed out, though, and this is something that I hadn't really thought about, my conception of it doesn't perfectly play because they do affect the physical world, right? Like the chips freeze and move. Lestat changes cards and moves the chips around. He scratches Tom Anderson's face in one of those time freezes. And here, the fight between Louis and Santiago, the physical fight, he's got him by the tongue, that continues after Armand freezes the rest of the table. Also, by the way, I love that the humans all freeze, the vampires all put their heads down like it's
heads down. It's so
7-Up or whatever in grade school.
I will say when they do the time freeze in the previous episode where Armand is approaching Lestat and they have their fight where he throws Lestat around and drags him around like that. In the behind the scenes thing, they were talking about how in that freeze they even had fishing wire attached to the dresses so that the dresses would move so they could make the dresses move as if they're moving in the breeze and things like that, so it is not a complete cessation of time. I agree with that. It's like, it's just I love it. I think this is a really cool power, even though it hasn't been outlined as thus in any of the books. I think it's really, really fun. I think it's a great way to see power and strength in a different way. I think it's a great way to for Armand in particular to get control of a situation, So it's definitely something he's using to his very great advantage a lot.
I agree. Something that just occurred to me, though, we get a similar thing later in the episode that I think might actually be connected to it. The way that you just laid it out, so it's not time that's frozen, it's all those individuals frozen where they are. So like literally the dress continues flapping in the breeze ever so slightly. Right. It's just they're not moving at all. Okay. Armand sees the two guards approach him at different times in the museum later in the episode, and he says rest, and they just stop where they are. He takes the flashlight, and hands one to Louis, and he takes one, etc. But it might be literally that you are effectively putting everyone you want to asleep. I mean, again, this is a demonstration of how strong Armand is, that he can do a whole restaurant in that way, full of people, in addition to all of his coven members.
Right.
None of them had any choice.
Right, who were also strong in their own right, I'm sure, many of them.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, interesting. The one further little nitpick that Nicholas made, and this is a good one, is like, okay, well, if Armand can do all of that, like, what can Akasha do? If Louis can set things on fire,
right.
How is it just about scale? And that, I genuinely think that's what it's going to come down to, is that Louis can set maybe a person on fire eventually. I think Akasha could set the town on fire,
the world on fire. Yeah,
like literally, like it's like we said earlier. I think these are going to be walking nuclear bombs when we get to the true ancients, the children of the millennia and everything. So anyway, interesting discussion though, and I think basically it's sort of like you have said in the past, Ashley, about the very first episode. Lestat floats up with Louis while they're feeding. I mean, he doesn't have the power of flight at that point in the books, and we don't know at that point exactly, does he have the power of flight at all? Seems later maybe he does based on episode 5, but still, regardless of whether he does or not, if you want to get mad about the specifics of the power set, well, this is probably not the show for you, honestly. If you want to enjoy sexy vampires, we're here for you.
Then we are here. All of us are here for you to enjoy your sexy vampires. Yeah, they're doing so many things right, and it's okay for some things to piss you off. I think that's fine. It's totally, for sure. You're completely justified in that, especially it was people who are huge book fans and all that jazz. But there's just so much else to like. It's hard for me to get mad about anything.
Tell me one thing wrong with this photo. Well, for one thing, I'm not in it. Oh my God. He's so... Again, Dreamstat here is fantastic throughout, but it is interesting, in the previous episode, there's the moment where, I think it's in the last episode, maybe 2 episodes ago, Louis goes to the Dick Garden again, and he's making out with what we see as Lestat, and Lestat Dreamstat tells him, even now, I'm the only one you trust. But it's been so true up to this point in the series. Those moments when Louis retreats even from Armand and he needs to vent about something, it's to Dreamstat that he's been doing it.
Yeah, and it's gotten to the point that it's not like Lestat's in the corner, like telling him opinions he doesn't want to hear. He's having full-on conversations with him. You know, like people see him leave his apartment and he's talking to someone.
Yes,
like out loud. And so I think that part of how things end up going in this episode is that he realizes that this is out of the realm of what's healthy for him.
Liz Withers in our Facebook group made this comment. She said, Dreamstat calling Armand Balthazar, a slight on Armand, insinuating he's no better than a minor character or servant, while, on the flip side, Balthazar is the character that informs Romeo, or in this case Louis, of Juliet, Claudia, or Lestat perhaps, of Juliet's death. In the play, Balthazar is the one that comes to Romeo in, he's been exiled at this point. He's in Adua or whatever. And he goes to wherever Romeo is in hiding, and he goes, oh my God, man, so
bad
sad.
news, buddy.
Did you hear the news? Juliet's dead. Which causes the whole bad ending, basically, is this bad, a bad message badly delivered from Balthazar. And that's who Lestat is referring Armand to here. So, I mean, even if Louis is just doing it subconsciously, chef's kiss, even Dreamstat's got all the literary references. I love it.
Yeah, we love the Shakespeare references in this episode. They're great.
Man, okay, so I was thinking it, and then Louis says it out loud. Louis and Armand walking through the museum. We mentioned earlier they put the guards to sleep, and then, they're just enjoying themselves. Louis says, seems familiar. Yeah, it's the final scene with Armand and Louis in the 94 movie, right? They're in the museum, and Louis tells him, you'll never change, and goodbye.
Yeah, bye.
I thought that was interesting, and I don't think that was, I mean, in the scene, obviously, him talking about it familiar has a different context, but I feel like that was there for us 94 movie lovers.
Yes.
Let's talk about the story of Arun. What did you think about this? So they go up to, first of all, great scene as we see Armand flying up the staircase while Louis and Dreamstat walk. Very
walking.
Cool.
It really was cool. The whole visual element in this was so fantastic. I loved it. It's a good, kind of summation of Armand's story. I think that is it all true? I don't know.
I mean, that's the pisser, right? Is that we can't, listen, I've got a 14-year-old son who has a habit of fibbing on big and small things. And I tell him this, I'm like, this is the tragedy of this situation, because you tell me something and I can't just immediately go to bat for whatever it is you're saying. If you come to me and say, this teacher mistreated me, or I got a grade unfairly, whatever, what I want to do is go to the school board and go to the school and raise holy hell, right? But first, I got to do a deep level investigation to see whether you're telling me the truth or not.
Because you might be being a little shit.
And that sums up Armand here in this series, to a T. We got to do a deep level investigation on everything you tell us, bud, whether we were there or not.
Right.
Because you fuck with our memories too.
Exactly. So you can't trust anything he says. There's some things he says that are not in alignment with the story of his life that we know. He talks about Marius lending him out, basically whoring him out. That was not something Marius did.
Okay, so there is
plenty of fucked up shit Marius does, but
just having a house full of boys,
right,
to start with, right? Probably not very kosher, as we've discussed in the past. But this particular, so somebody linked this in the group as well, like a little passage from the Vampire Armand novel, which we just covered not too long ago. And there's a great scene where the two of them go to this. It's like there's a poker game going on with a bunch of ne'er-do-wells, and Marius is toying with one of them who is clearly frothing at the mouth over Armand.
Yep.
But everybody in that room that's not named Armand or Marius is slaughtered at the end of that scene. And it's made very clear that one of the reasons they got slaughtered is because they all basically wanted to fuck Armand.
Right.
So maybe that's just jealousy, and in a different situation he would have loaned him out. In the books, that never happened. And
no.
It's not implied in any way that Marius would treat Armand in that way. Marius does some cold shit to Armand and a bunch of his other fledglings, honestly. Even Lestat, who he's generally a good mentor for, but Lestat gets a little bit of the story, and Marius fucks off for 1,000 years, basically.
He's like, bye. Yeah, exactly. He definitely,
honestly, that causes everything in Interview with a Vampire, right? Like if Marius had just held on to Lestat, he wouldn't have gone to New Orleans sad and depressed and fucked up Louis's life.
It's true, but then we would not have our favorite dysfunctional relationship of all time.
That's true. Okay, so there's a line here too, though, in the story of Arun that I wanted to call out. Louis asks, "When did you get the name Armand?" And he says, "The Coven gave it to me. The Roman Coven gave it to me when they sent me to Paris to take over for the Coven that Magnus abandoned." Okay, that's
right.
Different than the story we got about Magnus last week. Last week, Magnus had run off because he was one of Armand's deserters. So Magnus had been under Armand's leadership, is what we were told last week. Now, Magnus was supposed to lead the Coven in Rome. Okay, now that might be closer to the truth. I'm going to just give you spoilers here for the Vampire Lestat. And I think honestly, the full story comes a little bit in one of the later books too. But the basic gist of the Magnus story is that he was an alchemist. He was a wizard, or wanted to be anyway.
Right.
And he had, among many other things, discovered that vampires existed. He had several interactions with descendants of Marius and this coven that lived under Les Innocents. And so effectively, he kidnaps one eventually, traps him, drains him of blood, and is able to do the transformation himself. Like, he forces his way into vampirehood. And the reason he had to do that is because Magnus, the human, was fairly horribly disfigured, and the Coven would never create someone who wasn't beautiful. They thought that was a slight to God and the devil by creating an ugly vampire, basically. You had to be, the more beautiful, the better. That was the thing that you were stealing from heaven. That was the idea. Anyway.
Right. It was supposed to be an affront.
Yes. But because of those connections between the Coven and Magnus, in the novels, it's very clearly laid out that Lestat is nearly the mirror image to Marius. They're within like an inch of each other's height. They both have this long blonde hair. They've got a similar jawline. They're both, outgoing, brash, think they know everything in the world fellas.
Flashy dressers.
Yeah, flashy dressers. And Lestat was literally made to toy with Armand by his very physical appearance that, it's Marius right here in front of you, you asshole. Anyway, shortchanging some of that by saying, that he was somehow, he tried to align himself with the Coven, and once they created him, he was supposed to take over leadership, and then he deuced off, as many of the quote-unquote leaders in the Vampire Chronicles do. That would make sense. I wouldn't be that mad about that. Anyway, again, some changes, but since it's voiced from Armand, we don't know what that means exactly for what's
and
true.
Which version's right? Is either version right? Are we going to get a new version, 3 episodes down the way when we meet somebody new?
Lestat calls Armand a gremlin. It happened.
Oh, I love it. We love it. Our sweet little murder gremlin. Goblin gremlin.
Okay, so Delaney Hales has had a lot of great scenes, and she's got several good ones in this episode. The scene earlier, we already skipped over it a little bit, but the scene where she, calls out Armand basically and says, "This is not working for me, and I'd like something else." Not that it works, but it's very good delivery from her. Yeah. This one, though, where she comes to chew Louis's ass.
Ooh.
Because she now knows that
Armand knows. Yeah, and how much have you told him besides what he could figure out by himself? She's so angry. Like, you've made it unsafe for us. And he just threatened me. He just threatened me with it. You think that he wouldn't do something to me? She's so angry. It's so... I will say there's a couple of slips back into her British in this scene. She gets really, really amped up, and it slips just a tiny bit. Yeah, her anger is so righteous. She's just she feels like she's a flame herself.
I forgot love makes you stupid. That's such a good line. And honestly, that could be the name of this entire fucking series. I forgot love makes you stupid.
That could be the name of a lot of people's lives.
Okay, speaking, though, of love making you stupid, this is followed up by Louis and Lestat go hunting, except there's no hunt.
Yes.
Man.
Oh.
Okay, first of all, when Lestat when Dreamstat, this is all inside Louis' subconscious, but when Dreamstat realizes the situation and verbalizes, there won't be a hunt, will there? Oh my God, that's all the heartbreak already. Like before you even get to, and by the way, we were deep into the rain falling after they had taken the umbrella down and Lestat slowly melting before I realized what was happening visually in front of me the first time. I mean, he was 3/4 gone before I realized what had happened. And I was like, oh my God. And then suddenly I'm crying.
Yeah, I will say something that this is an Ashley problem. And it's hilarious, but I'm going to share it because I think it's really funny. Because I didn't get as emotional about that scene as I thought I was going to as it was happening. Because I can't help when someone starts to disappear like that is thinking Doc Brown's voice erased from existence. And it takes you right out of the moment if that's what happens when people stop disappearing in movies and television for you. I just think about Marty McFly fucking...
Did the moment in Infinity War do it too, or was the dust enough to change it?
It was a bit. It was the initial part. I will say, I thought it for a second, and then it started happening to everyone, and that ruined the fun for me.
That was
for
better.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. No, but it was so beautifully done. It's a great scene. I love Lestat asking him, "Why am I wearing this suit?" And he says, "It's my favorite suit." That was my favorite suit, and he tells him about having his name embroidered inside, or having
your name on my card pocket, so that your name can embrace and he disappears before he can say heart. But like, god damn, Ashley,
and that has to be something that Louis knows, because this version of Lestat is him.
Okay, if it was his favorite suit, did he maybe bury him in it?
Oh, shit.
Did he maybe put him in that suit before he put him in the box?
Oh.
That's the thought because I thought, wow, Louis' subconscious is really doing some cool shit here, right? Like coming up with a hidden thing about Lestat to make you feel one more ounce of
a little
grief for
token
him
of love.
before you dissolve his memory or whatever. Like, damn, that's cold, Louis. But then I thought, maybe he did know that already, or maybe he's, had noticed it but not really paid attention to it, and that could be the moment. Is like, what if he put him in that suit one time?
Yep.
Right before he dropped him off in the swamp.
Jesus. And that's when he saw the embroidery in the pocket.
Okay, how much would you pay this off-season for an alternate reality game where AMC would give us all of those fucking Talamasca files to go through?
Oh my God. Okay, let me just talk about that, because I am...
Hint, AMC.
Yeah, please and thank you. I am such a ADHD hyperfixator. So, like, I literally have read, like, government files on things that I find interesting. I've read like police reports and witness statements. I have read the entirety of the NASA report that was released after the Challenger and Columbia disasters. I will rabbit hole so hard and learn so much weird shit about whatever topic it is that there's nothing that brings me more joy. And when I see those files, all I can think about is how I could spend hours upon hours upon hours just deep diving and being a crazy fan. Oh, I love it so hard. I really would love that.
By the way, we mentioned last week, we said that Mark Johnson was the only one that actually said the name Talamasca. And that's true, but we had missed it last week. In those files, one of the folders, or the very first folder, I think that you have to click through to get to everything else, it's got their logo, and it says Talamasca Biblioteca is the title of the file that he clicks on. And that's what opens up into all the folders then with all the sub-information. But, like, seriously, folks, AMC, I don't know what your deal is with Christopher and the estate, but, like, just think about it. 3 different times that I'm aware of, Anne Rice fans have bought effectively a dictionary with her shit in it. Like we bought the Vampire Companion, then we bought the Vampire Companion 2nd edition when they came out with Memnock information too. Then we bought the Witch Companion. Then we bought the Alphabetary. So like, sell us a book. Sell us the Talamasca Biblioteca, please. Like,
yeah, I really would like it in digital form.
Version. Okay, I'd be down with that too. But I want the big coffee table version. Like I've got the. What is it called? Fire and Ice or whatever, the history book of Game of Thrones that they made.
Yeah.
And see, that's cool too, because it's like in universe written by a maester or whatever. So like do the same thing here. Have it collected as like, Talbot's files or whatever, and shit, put it out in editions. So you put out edition 1 now, and that only covers the stuff that the TV shows have covered so far, and then put out a second edition in a few years. Again, we have the money and we will spend it. I think your Vampon ads have made that clear, AMC.
Oh my God.
So we missed it earlier, by the way, because we're past the Madeline scene, but let's talk about that now.
The second Madeline scene.
They teased us with this week's little, period scene from Madeline by selling Vampons last week. I had no idea.
It's reverse product placement, I guess. Poor Madeline. No lady likes to have that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, immediately it made us all think about Mimnock. I think immediately that's what anybody that's read the books would think about first thing first. But like, this was, we totally got reverse product placed.
And I made that crack immediately. And then I even went, it was so funny to me. I even went and made a little video, and that's literally what I say. I'm like, we've all read Mimlock the Devil, haven't we? I think we have.
Right.
You knew what you were doing, AMC.
We know what's going on here.
It was so funny, Ashley, on my TikTok, which, by the way, you can find Articulate Coven on Threads, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram as well, if you want to get funny shorts of the show as we make them. But someone on TikTok commented on that video, and they said, "Oh no, what happens in Mimnock the Devil?" And it was like, hide their face or whatever. And I just said, let's just say Lestat gets a taste. And they were like, "Oh no, thank you. No, thank you." I was like, yeah, it's not really better in context either. Like we've talked about it a lot.
It's a whole scene, y'all.
Yes. All right. So that was my big thing, is like those Talamasca files. First of all, there's just so much level of detail there that we get glimpses of in the show. Well, they've got to be doing something with that.
Yeah. If they do something, if they were to do something off season for everybody to enjoy, it would serve Mayfair as well. It would serve everything going forward. It's not like it would only be something that would be appealing to Vampire Chronicle fans. I imagine, like, because there's a ton of new Mayfair Witch fans from that series. Just usually it's people that just like witch stuff and haven't really read the books at all. That's who seems to be like enjoying Mayfair the most. Yes,
and those folks are potential viewers for your Talamasca spinoff, right? If you're going to have a show that splits the middle, so to speak, yeah, absolutely, I would do that. I would do all of this in the lead up, AMC. There you go. You can have all of that for free.
Yeah,
feel free to add us as consultants, but give it to us.
Give it to us.
The episode insider, though, there's lots of stuff in this. Delaney's very cute when she's talking about dancing. I'm a dancer, not professional, but I do dance. I'm like, yeah, I love it. 3 a.m. in your bedroom. I love it.
Yeah, we know. We know what that's like.
Okay, but Jacob Anderson in specific, I want to call out here. Okay, Jacob Anderson's perception, anyway, of Louis is that he knows he's in control of these relationships. At the very end, with Armand and Louis on the bench after Dreamstat disappears, Armand ends up calling Louis Maitre.
Well, yeah, and I follow this criminal profiler who's a domestic violence expert named Laura Richards, and she has a couple of really great podcasts out there, Real Crime Profile, and she's got another one that's just her that's really great too. But she talks about how, a big sign in domestic violence situations is that one partner is in control of the emotional temperature of the relationship. And this is, you talking about Louis like this is such a good example of that. We see, it's really easy to see Louis as a victim in a lot of this, but Louis also has his role to play in the manipulation and in lying and in he's not telling full truths to Armand. He doesn't, he fucking kills Lestat. He tries to kill Lestat, so like he has his role in this as well. So it's a very interesting concept about, who is in control of a relationship's emotional temperature, who's got the power.
The way that Jacob talked about that character and specifically his relationship with Armand here, it struck me as like really darkening. Yeah, it makes his dismissal of Lestat and his accepting Armand here at the end of this episode, it makes both fairly dark and kind of fucked up in a way that, like, I mean, again, we've talked all this time about how Armand is clearly manipulating Louis, or has, at least in some way in the past. But Jacob says Armand is a rebound that lasts 70 to 80 years. Friend, in the show, you're telling us this is the love of my life.
Right.
Right.
In present day Dubai, we're fine. Yeah. So this is,
Jacob is like, well, but not really. I'm telling you, I think this, again, we said it earlier in the episode. Am I the sum of my worst moments? And in the first season, that quote was supposed to be about Lestat. In this episode, it seemed to be about Daniel, but it's really, I think, for the series, about Louis. What has Louis done, and can he come to grips with it? And how has he manipulated his own? I mean, again, I think I've brought up my grandmother before in the show. My Nana, my mom's mom and I joke about it now. She's been passed for several years. Today's her birthday, actually. Happy birthday,
Nana. Happy birthday, Nana.
She would have been, I think, 96 today. I think 96 today. Anyway, she would tell a story once because she was a fibber. And when she told it that second time, she would believe it. And if she told it a third time, she could have passed a polygraph on it.
Right.
Like, it's not even, I mean, it's clinical, psychological problems there. And, Daniel calls out Louis, are you schizophrenic? Did you consider yourself schizophrenic at the time?
At the time,
this stuff is heavy level, what does Louis say earlier in the episode about Armand? Quintessential Leon court? Yeah, like...
Yes.
This is manipulative behavior, man, and it makes you think about literally every moment in season 1 where the show has cast Lestat in the wrong. And again, I'm not qualifying or saying it's okay for him to have a punch-up. But damn, Louis is cold here. Like, cold.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing a more... And this version of Louis is a little colder than the Louis I'm used to, and it's so much more in depth. It's so much more there's so much about Louis is just kind of a surface character in a lot of the way he's portrayed throughout the books. It's just it's definitely the way he's seen through other people's eyes. So you don't really see how he sees himself. And this is, seeing all these different facets of the character. It makes the character more interesting and rich. It doesn't take anything away from the Louis that I'm used to, but he definitely, I mean, at least as far as the version that we're being told, he's definitely playing a part in the manipulation of Armand, of Lestat, of Claudia, and even of Daniel.
Yes. Like, again,
he's not an innocent party in any of this.
Well, in the bedroom, it's clear it's Louis' idea for Daniel to be there. Armand did not start this.
Right. I did not like the idea of this to start with.
Yeah. So Louis is... We're going to have to take our boy to task, I think, before the end of the season as things unroll and continue to unravel.
He'll have to take I think when we get to the real climax of the season and what we all know as book readers is going to happens, like, he's going to have to, and he tells that story, and we learn, he's going to have to take a hard look at himself and at his role in Claudia.
Yes. In all of it, honestly.
Yeah.
In all of it. Yeah. I think there's going to be, and I mean, honestly, that may be his journey in season 3 is, like, walking the earth like Cain, trying to find redemption for himself. Yeah, I don't know. So, okay, next week, they gave us a great teaser in the episode, and then actually they revealed a trailer with some glimpses of the rest of the season, a few more scenes. Not much, though. Next week, though, it looks to me like we won't get any resolution to the Santiago storyline or the Claudia storyline. Nothing in Paris at all, I don't think. I think we're going to spend all the time in Dubai and San Francisco.
I do too, and I'm very excited about it because I'm hoping we get a little. And we're not gonna get clarity. Shit, I'm hoping we get some clarity. Like, we're just gonna end up being more confused than we were to start with, but at least we'll have a more fleshed out version of whatever we're confused about.
Yes, we'll have some more pieces to the puzzle. I also think it's probable that we're going to get a new title card next week with San Francisco on top. And,
Ooh,
and Dubai
I bet you're
below.
right.
Yeah,
I bet you're right.
So, but that means that this story and this Paris story, the Coven in the 40s, is really going to come to a head in episode 6, which to me means the resolution that we all know, as you said, is coming, happens in episode 7. And as I mentioned at the top, I think we're going to get a Lestat heavy episode 8.
Oh, I hope so.
Yes,
I hope
that's
so.
my guess. And here's the other thing too. I bet we don't see Lestat at all next week.
Oh no, I don't think we will
I think
either.
we hear about him, because my guess now is the Lestat scene. I think it happens in San Francisco in the 70s. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I think we're gonna hear about him. We might get a flash of him, but it's going to be very much in the San Francisco and Dubai worlds. I totally agree with that. It did not look like they were going to give us anything of Paris at all.
Well,
so,
I think that's literally why they melted Dreamstat. I think that's why they decided to put some sort of effect on it instead of just having him disappear. I think they wanted us to feel final with this version. And then when they withhold him from us next episode, if he shows up then in 6 or 7, it'll be like, oh, a gasp because Sam's back,
Right.
So and then, by the way, it won't be Dreamstat.
No, it will be Realistat.
It'll be
I'm very
Dreamy
excited.
Stat.
Shut up.
Oh, okay, friends. Hey, by the way, I just want to acknowledge this. We're over 700 members now in our Facebook group. We added like 30 something this week, Ashley.
I saw that. That was crazy. We love you. Welcome.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
Welcome to the hangout. It's good times. I will say we have a couple of members that have been pimping us out pretty hard in other groups. So
that's true. That's true.
Big love and appreciation for those of you that are doing that.
And we're over like 250, I think, on the YouTube channel. So appreciate that too. On the march so at 500, we get some of the whatever, you become a creator partner at that point, and we can open up a lot of new features on YouTube. So we'd love to get there maybe by the end of the season. That would be freaking fantastic.
That would be awesome.
A little bit of scheduling stuff. Ashley and I, I'm going to be on the road, so I'm the primary driver here, but we might be a little bit late next week. We'll try to get you an episode out by at least Tuesday, though. And in between here and there, get ready, watch episode 5. We'll all know a little bit more about San Francisco when we come back and talk again next week.
I'm so excited. I want those scenes very much.
Me too. It's going to be fun. All right. Until we talk to you again, we've been your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven. Thanks for listening to The Articulate Coven. You can join our community on Facebook by following the links in the show notes or searching for Articulate Coven on Facebook. You can subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or at articulatecoven.com. And share us with your Anne Rice-loving friends.